Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to be learning about reading and writing numbers with decimals. A few things I want you to be aware of is you're going to be noticing that I'm going to use two different colored pens. When I write with a green pen, green means go. That means I expect you to go along with me, copy everything I'm writing, and I will expect to see those notes in your spiral. When I'm writing with the red pen, however, I want you to stop. I just want you to stop and watch what I'm doing. Okay, let's get started. Okay, our notes will usually start with the vocab section. These are words that you're going to need to be familiar with for the assessment, and you're going to see them used in both your homework journal and in your classwork journal. So our first word is base 10 numerals. Our number system is based on the number or numeral 10. So when you are asked to write a number in base 10 or base 10 numerals, you're being asked to write it in standard form. That's probably a term that you used often last year, standard form. Standard just means regular or normal. So when you are asked to write it, you are using digits. So for example, if I was asked to write base 10 numeral for 11, I would just write it as an 11. That's what we consider as normal. Or maybe 246. That's considered base 10 numerals, or it's considered standard form. Another form they might ask you to use is the number name. This one's a little bit clearer when you're asked to use the name of it. So they want you to write it using words. So for example, instead of 11, I'm going to write it this way, 11. Instead of 246, I'm going to write it this way, 246. Okay, a whole number is a number that does not have a fraction or a decimal. It means you only have whole numbers. This is usually what you have been working with so far. Now, a decimal is very different. It's a number that is a fraction or a part of a whole. And our last vocab word is a decimal point. So a decimal point is the symbol. It's a mathematical symbol. It looks like this. That's used to separate the whole from the decimal. So when we do our examples, you're going to see this. You're going to see the whole number is always on the left, the decimal is always on the right, and then in between is the decimal point to show the clear separation. Okay, the next part of our notes is actually titled Notes. This is the section that I usually give you some sort of hints or tricks or something I want you to remember. So the first thing is a place value chart. This is the place value chart that you're going to be seeing throughout your Swun book. We're actually not going to use it for our questions. The reason is I don't want us to get too comfortable with it, because once you get to your test, you're going to see that they no longer give it to you. So what I do want you to use it for is this last section. I want you to use it to memorize the place values. You're going to need to know that the order of them. The tenth is right after the decimal point, then hundredths, then thousands. What this means is this is our smallest whole number place value, one whole, and it gets smaller when we go to tenths. This means they've taken the one whole and they've cut it into 10 pieces. This means they've taken the one whole and cut it into 100 pieces. And this is the one whole cut into the 1,000 pieces. And then when you look real close, you'll notice that they end in THS. That's this. So it's called tenths, hundredths, and thousands. So for right now, we're just going to use that kind of as a reference guide. Okay, the next little hint I want you to know is this. This is going to be the big part of our lesson for the next few days. So I'm going to put some stars just to let us know how important it is. This is the 4 parts to saying a decimal. So first, you say or write the whole number, which is the number before the decimal. Then we say or write and for the decimal. Third, we say or write the decimal number. And then finally, we say or write the last place value. I'm going to show you what that actually looks like in a moment. Okay, and the last little hint is when you're writing numbers 21 through 99, you need to use a hyphen if there's two words. So if the number was actually 21, because it has two words, I'm going to need to write it as 20-1. But if I was writing 30, I would just write 30 because it has one word. If I was writing 55, I would write 50-5. So that's just something to keep in mind in the next few lessons when we're going to be writing these numbers a lot. Okay, the next part of our note section is usually going to be steps. I usually provide you with some sort of steps. This is just to help you with some strategies of how to attack the problems. I never expect you to memorize these steps. What I hope for is that you'll use them to answer your questions, and you'll kind of know them in your own words. So instead of memorizing my exact words, you'll just memorize the big idea behind my words. So my first step says we're going to separate the whole number from your decimal by circling the decimal point or the word and. And you're going to notice there's going to be some like or parts in our steps because we're going to use these same steps for two different types of problems. Our second step, which is the main one, is we're going to use the 4 parts of a decimal, this one that we had over here. We're going to use that to write our number. So we're going to first write the whole number. And then we're going to write the word and or draw it's a little decimal point. Let's make it a little bigger. Or draw a decimal point for the decimal point. I know that seems a little weird, but I'll show you what it looks like in a moment. And then we're going to write the decimal number. And then we're going to write the last place value. And remember, when you're doing place values with decimals, don't forget your this. Now, this last part can get a little tricky. I'm going to put a little star there to kind of remind us to pay close attention, because sometimes you're going to have to check to see if it matches. We're going to come back to this tricky part tomorrow. Okay, so what does this look like? Well, I'm going to set down my green pen, which means you can set down your pencil, and I'm going to pick up my red pen, which means you're just stopping and watching. So here's my first problem. And I'm going to refer to my steps to help me. Okay, they want me to write the number name for this number. Well, first, I'm going to separate my whole number from my decimal by circling either the decimal point or the word and. So here I'm going to circle that, and that's just separating them. So I know this is my whole number, that's my decimal number. Now I'm going to use my 4 parts. So first, I'm going to write the whole number. Well, this whole number is just 2. So I'm just going to write 2. Whoops, you can't see that. Let's move it up. Then my second part says I'm going to write and for the decimal point. So instead of writing decimal point, I'm going to write and. It's my second part. My third part says I'm going to write the decimal number. So now my third part is I'm going to write the decimal number. That number is 67. And my final step, my fourth step, is I'm going to write the last place value. Don't forget the this. This is where you might want to come back to this reference sheet if you don't know them. My decimal place values go from tenths to hundredths to thousandths. I like to label them. So this is my tenths, this is my hundredths. So my last place value is hundredths. So this number is read correctly as 2 and 67 hundredths. Okay, let's try one more. Okay, so here's my next one. I tried to trick you. Let's see if you get tricked. I'm going to go back to my first step, which says I'm going to separate my whole number from my decimal number by circling this decimal point. you notice there, that's not a decimal point, that's just the period from the sentence. So don't let those throw you off. Okay, now we're on to our second step, which is the big one, where I'm using my 4 parts. So first, I'm going to write the number, the whole number, which this one is 89. So 89. My second step is I'm going to write and for my decimal point. Okay, my third step is I'm going to write the decimal number. Okay, that's a little weird with the 0 there, but really that number still only has a value of 12. So I'm still going to write only 12 for that number. So I have 12. And then my fourth part is I'm going to write the last place value. So again, I can refer to this if I need it, but I always like to write up here tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So for this problem, my last place value is thousandths. So this number is 89 and 12 thousandths. Okay, let's try one together. So I'm going to put down my red pen and grab my green pen, which means you are working with me. All right, ready? We're going to look at our steps, and we're going to first circle our decimal point to separate that whole number from that decimal number. Now we're going to write our whole number, which is 8. We're going to write and for our decimal point. And notice where I'm at here. I'm on step 2. I'm going pretty fast. Now for step 3, part 3, I'm going to write my decimal number, which for this one is 912. Sometimes some adults like to call that 912, and that's incorrect. You never say and unless there's a decimal point. So this is just 912. And then our fourth part, which is the trickiest, is I'm going to figure out my last place value. Well, again, we can refer to this if we need to, but we always want to write it tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So it is thousandths, but don't forget that THS. So this number is 8 and 912 thousandths. Okay, I hope you're feeling okay. If not, don't worry, because tomorrow this is what we're working on in class. Your job now is to try 3 on your own without me for homework, and then on the bottom, rate your understanding. How do you feel? Are you really confused? Oh, are you so? 3, I got it. 4, I've really got it. I'm so good I could teach my friends. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow.